下面我们西游会议录。
Now, journey to the
远一
west.
点啊，那么到了这个夏威夷以后
After we arrived in
17号
Hawaii on the
当时那个时差有一
17th,
点
I
点
believe
17
there
号是
was
已经到
some
了那边的。
time
然后
difference.
6月18号
I
的时候
think we
就是第一
arrived on
次
the
传法
17th,
法王如意
and
宝
then
呢
on the
就是在密
18th
宗是给大
morning
家
was
传的
the first Dharma
菩萨戒
transmission given by
因为
Khenpo
这个是
Sodargye,
第一场
and
就
Khenpo
是
Sodargye
这
conferred the
也是我
Bodhisattva
们在
vow
那个
ceremony at
西方
Nechon
呢
Dorje
就是第一个
Dryang
就
Ling,
是
the
传法嘛，这是第一
Nechon
次的这
monastery
个
or
传
the
法。
Wood Valley
然后
temple.
当时寺院的话，主办方呢就是先给法王就是唱了一些吉祥戒，包括
At
他们
that
这个
time,
本地的
the
啊
whole
还有就是
center
佛教的啊，就是有一
first
些
offered
吉祥
some
戒，然后
auspicious
呢就是他
verses
们的
for
也是一个
Khenpo
冠
Sodargye
架，就
and
是他们
made
也是一个西
some
方人，
auspicious
他当时呢
introduction.
就
The
是做
person,
了这个
the
下面的
host
这种开
at
场
that
白，
time
他
was
是
a
这样想的，
Westerner.
就是他说
He
在这
then
个吉
said
祥的
that
这个时
we
刻
have
呢，就是我们都欢聚在这里，
this
因缘呢就是非
incredible
常的殊
unique
胜。
karma
虽
to be
然
together
法
here
王如意宝
on
呢，
this
就是法
auspicious
王呢，就是他
occasion.
这里就是住
His
的时间
Holiness
是不会
Jigme
很
Phuntsok
长的，
Rinpoche is
就是
unable
这接
to
下
stay
来
here for
应该这
an
个4天
extended
啊，就是
period
因
of
为
time.
我们
Rather,
是
he
16号
only
就是开
had
始
4
传法的，
days.
应该16、
We
17、18
started on the 16th,
18号
17th,
18号
18th,
就是然后19、20、
and then
21、
19and
22号就离开的，就是4天啊，
21st,
就是在夏威夷整个就待了4天。
22nd. So
在
it
短
was
暂的时间呢，就是非常
from
的宝贵，
18th
就
to
是
the
我们这
22nd.
个
That was
全
4
心全
days.
意的领受佛法。
He continued to say
而
that
且
we
呢，
shall
就是
fully embrace the
就
Dharma
是
teachings during the course of
就
the
怎么
next
说啊，
short
就是
but
大家要
precious
强
4
烈的
days
就是好好
and
的
make
这
a
个
firm
受持和
commitment
发愿。
to uphold
还有
and
呢，就
practice
是
the
这个
teachings
这个
since
机
this
会呢也非常
opportunity
难得，
is
就是他
quite
当时大
rare.
概就是讲了这些。然后他还介绍呢，
And
就
then
是说是
he
在藏地就是那
introduced
些
Phuntsok Rinpoche by
这
saying
个
that
朝圣
in
者
the
呢，
land
就
of
是为了法
Tibet,
王面前想得到一点
all
法，
of
就是
those
从印度啊，就
disciples,
是藏地啊，
in order to
就
receive the
是
Dharma teachings
应该
of
千里迢迢的
Phuntsok
就是来到
Rinpoche,
那
they
里去，
would have
就
to
吃
endure
苦啊，
great
就是吃很
hardship
多的苦。
to take a long
其实
journey
当
from
时学
India
员
and
就是
other
也
parts
有
of the
就是
regions
从
of
印
Tibet
度啊，就是
to
这些当
areas
时康波当
where
州他们的是
to
从印度
where
来，
Phuntsok
这个法
Rinpoche
王呢给他们
resides.
传了100天的那
There
个
were
空心
times
心地
when
的法，就
Phuntsok
是就这
Rinpoche
个之前
when
是
some disciples
应该
traveled all the
是
way from India, I think
89
back
年，
in
就是89年呢、91年呢、92年呢，
1989
就是这些都是当
and
时印度人来的有。
91 and
然后
92,
那个
there
就是
were
汉地和
disciples
藏地
traveled
的
all the
来
way
的就
from
是很
India,
多。
and
而
Phuntsok
且法
Rinpoche
王所
would
在的地方呢，就
Phuntsok
是
Rinpoche
很
had
穷很冷。
bestowed the Dharma
就是我
of
们这个拉拢呢，就是当时别人评价的是很冷
Dakini
很穷。
Nintik
去哪里
to
非
Khenpo
常这
Nintik
个
to
难
the
的，就
disciples
是
for
更
100
特别
days.
说在哪里，就是就不要说是在
The
哪里，
host
就是住在
continued
哪
to
里，
say
就
that
就更别
it
说
is
就
not
住在哪里。
only
而
quite
且
hard
呢，就
to
是这
go
些出
there,
发
go
者是
to
本身就是极大
Larongar,
的
but
这种磨
even more
难，就是为
challenging
了在
to
法王
stay
面
there
前
because
停
it
下
was
来。他当时
very
介绍的就是说是
cold
在哪里
and
的这种
impoverished.
这个听法的这种机会吧，就是。那
Nonetheless,
现在我们这
individuals
里
who
的
seek
所
the
有人
Dharma
呢，
are
就是
willing
这
to
么
go
容
through
易
a great deal of
容易
difficulty
的
just to
能
be able to
遇
hear
到了法
teachings
王，
from
而
His
且坐
Holiness
在这
in
里就是
person.
看到他的这
Now,
个
thanks
经
to
历啊，
our
听到他
past
的甘露妙法，
aspirations and
这也
prayers,
是
all
使
of
这个
us
王羲
here
的这
are
种愿
able
力
to
和
meet
王羲自己祈祷的
Phuntsok
这个
Rinpoche with
这
such
种因缘，
ease
就
and
是
sit
所
here
导致的话，
comfortably,
不然
seeing
就是
Phuntsok
没有那么容易。
Rinpoche's
其实
majestic
真
face
的
and
是当
hearing
时
his
见
nectar-like
到法
Dharma
王的人的
teachings.
话，那就还是
Those
有
people
缘分的，
who
就是包括我们
met
在
Phuntsok
座的各
Rinpoche
位
in
的话呢。
person, they must
一方
have
面是见过
had
法王
made
的人呢，
great
还是
auspicious
很有
connections to
缘分
Phuntsok
的。然后
Rinpoche,
第二个方面的
including
话
all
呢，
of
我也
you
想
who are
就是
reading
这本
this
书
book.
啊，就是见到的话，那就是也基本
Those
上
of
是
you who had
跟
met
法
him,
王
of
的
course,
这
and
个
those of
殊
you
胜的
who
教
are
法呢，
reading
就
this
是介
book
绍了殊胜的愿，就
because
是所以
you
在
are
前言当中
making
也讲
auspicious
了，如
connections
果以
to
前
the
没有
Dharma
见过法
teachings
王
of
的人
Phuntsok
的话呢，
Rinpoche, then
基
it
本
is
上把
just
这
like
本
you
书
have
就是
met
好好
him.
的读一遍、
If
学一
you
遍的
can
话呢，
study
也
it,
可能
read
在
it
法王面前
carefully,
就是获得的这种教言啊，
then
没有什
it
么差
is
别，就是
no
只不过
other
是
than
当时是
receiving the
时
Dharma
间是
teachings
当时
from
这3
Phuntsok
年做
Rinpoche.
的，就是然
It
后
is
人是在
only
现
a
场，
difference
但
of
是 现在
time
呢，就像佛陀也是，
and
当时是
difference
佛陀
of
在
whether
世
sitting
说的，
in
但
front of him
2500
or
年前
not.
2500多年以后，
It
我
is
们
similar to
现在就是
speak
听
of
的这些法的话，
the
当时
Buddha's
在显
teachings
场
as
当中
well.
讲的这些，后来记
When
录下来，
when
就
the
所以这
Buddha
个没有
gave
什么差
Dharma
别。
teachings
他当时
2,500
说
years
是虽
ago,
然就是
though
生
we
活，你
cannot
们这
sit
这
in
些
front
人
of
的
the
生活
Buddha
呢
right
非
now,
常忙，
we
其
still
实现在
have
呢
the
倒是
opportunities
觉
to
得特
read
别
the
忙，
Buddha's
就是
teachings and
有
still
很多很多重要的
study
事情要
and
去做。
inherit
但
the
这几天呢，就
inherit
是一
the
定要把这
spirit
个
of the
所有的
Buddha
这些
from
source
the
放在一边
texts.
啊，就是让这次呢，就 就是学法啊，就是
So
到达就是最好的效果。
even
其实
though
我当时听到他的这些
you
说法
lead
的
a
话呢，
busy
就是
life
好像
and have
很
a lot
确
of
的是他
obligations,
说
you
的
must
是
put
非常对
everything
的，
on
因为
hold for
他们
these few
可能
days
见
so
法王
that
也
you
是只
can
有4天的时
benefit
间，这一
fully
辈子
from
就是让
this
他们
series of
很
teachings.
多措施
The
放下
time
来，就是当时
to
人
be
也
with
算是
such
比
a
较多的，就是
reverent
对当地来
master
讲
such
是比较
as
多
Khenpo
的。
Sodargye
其
is
实这个
short,
事件呢，就
but
是
so
并不长
precious
久，
that
我
we
们
must
应该抛
abandon
开就是这
worldly
些世
ambitions
俗的
and give
这个
the
世俗的
teachings
这个
our
追求，
undivided
认真的戒
attention.
守佛法，尤其是在法王这样的大德面前啊，就是非
We
常难得
have
的。
to
同时，大
spend
家也要注
the
意，我们
time
之后的
and
佛
we
弟
have
子
to
在一记戒法呢，应该要
very
保持这
carefully
个3
listen
秒
to
的
the Dharma
发心，
teachings in
希
front
望
of
这
such
个
a
法
great
呢，就
master.
是能够
Also
真
be
正的
aware
受
that
持
a
和
great
还有
numbers
这
of
个
Buddhists
广泛
are
的
here together to
传
receive
播
the
啊，
Dharma,
就是这
and
是
all
当
of
时
you
他们
need
的
to
发愿。
maintain a virtuous
那么这个时候
intention
呢，就是
with
他的
the
那
same
个
hope
主
that
持
the
主持
Dharma
人也
we're
好，就
going
是
to
那个
receive will be
家王和法以
firmly
后呢，法王
upheld
就是很
and
慈悲的坐在法
extensively
座上，然后
disseminated.
呢，就是开始这
And
个
Khenpo
传法，
Sodargye,
就是
while
传
he
法
was
的开
sitting
始呢，
on the
就是法
Dharma
王当
throne, he
时就是
started
以
to
比较这
compassionately
个唱诵的方式
while
来，就是
sitting
就说了
graciously
这
with
样的一个
compassion
流露
on
出
the
这样
Dharma
的一
throne,
首
Khenpo Sodargye
从来没有
started
听过
to
的一个吉祥
commence
词啊，
the
吉祥偈。
transmission.
那么这
And
个呢，
first,
就是就
Khenpo Sodargye
他这样的就
spontaneously
是天
sang
穹
an
吉祥
auspicious
呢，就
verse
是
that we
天
had
宇就
never
是
heard
变
before. He said that
这
he
个
sang
彩
that the
彩
dome of
虹，
skies
然
full
后
of
大地吉
rainbows
祥，众人
spread by
向
auspicious
善，
celestial
世间
maidens.
吉祥
The
呢，就是
auspicious
金梦
ground
圆
is
坛
filled
城，
with people
于
who
此吉
enjoy the
祥
10
圆满
virtues. The
正吉祥。
auspicious
他这
location
里每一个你
completes
们呢，
the
就是有
peaceful and
这个
wrathful
一个吉祥
mandalas, and may
啊，就是第二个
auspiciousness
字
be
的时候呢，
perfected
就是
and
有个
ever
吉祥。
increase.
然后最后一个寄送的话呢，就是后面有一个吉祥，就是他这是藏文
The
当中的有一种
auspicious,
特
the
殊
word
的这个修饰
auspicious
法，就是藏文里面专
is
门寺
used
学
in
当
the
中是有
Tibetan
这样的，比如说每一
verse
个寄
is
送当
so
中的话呢，都
skillful
加一
that
个
it
寄送
usually
吉祥，
it
然后
takes
最
us
后
a
呢就是
very
有个
long
吉祥，
period of
或者说
time
是
to
每一个寄送的最后有
speak
一个
of
吉祥，有
this,
这样的，就是同样的
because you
词
can
呢，就
see
是加
that
的，
the
但是意思都
auspiciousness
不
is
相同的。这个
very
一般
much
我们
aligned
写的
and
话呢，
in
就
a
是
way
比
that
较
it
费
sounds
劲
very
的。我
poetic.
们以前学四学的时候的话呢，
When you
比如说
study
要这个的话
poetry,
呢，就是那这个整个内容都要可能下
in
很长
fact,
时
it
间。
takes
但是当
us
时法王好像
usually a very
特
long
别
period
简
of
单
time
的，就是因为
to
就
write a
是这
beautiful
法王
verse
一
like
般
that.
就
But Khenpo
准备，就
Sodargye
是当
just
天的话呢，法王也没有什
spontaneously
么
sang
啊，
this.
我们
He
平时
didn't
是就是前
specifically
面就
prepare
是
for
录一
it.
些，比如说长一点的
How
话呢，
he
就是给他录音，就是加
usually
加
would
在就是
prepare
录
for
音
the
机交给他，
teachings
然后
is
就是
just
他
if
边
he
听
were
边
to give
边
long
就
teachings,
但
since he
当天
couldn't
的话
read
呢，
at
他
that
说是
time
不用什么，
with
今
his
天是唱个
eyes.
菩萨戒是吧，很简单。
So he would
让
ask
法王
us
就
to
就
make
直
a
接唱
recording.
诵，
But
唱诵
other
完
than
了以
that,
后呢，
he
法王给大家说
didn't
扎
need
西
to
德勒
prepare
啊，就是
much.
祝大家吉祥啊，这样。
Usually
法王不是
he
以前说是扎西的
would,
什么吉祥
and
如
then
意，
he
吉祥如意，
wished
就是扎西
everyone
德勒就是吉祥如
Jasidele
意的。
and
然后呢，就是
explained the
他就
verse. So
开始
Jasidele means
介绍，就是在开始闻法之
auspiciousness.
前呢，你们为我就是送来唱了一个吉祥的原词，因此呢，我在传法之前的话
And
呢，
then
就是也给你们
Khenpo
这个
explained,
回
you
应的
have
方
sung
式
some
来送一
auspicious
个吉
verses
祥
for me
戒。
before
那
you
么这
received
首
the
吉祥戒
teachings.
呢，什么
Therefore,
意思
I
呢？
also
它就
chanted an
分四个
auspicious
方
verse
面，
for
就是
you
第一句
before
话的
I
意思
impart
呢，
the Dharma
就是
teachings.
这个吉祥的活动当中的话呢，天上的
He
这个
then
吉祥
explained,
概念
what does this
非
verse
常
mean?
欢喜。
The
这个
opening
我们后面还提
sentence
到的，就是他这里有一
states
个
that the auspicious
应该是菩提
celestial
森吧，就是
maidens
吉祥
are
天女，就是
deeply
他好像
joyful
经常呢
about
就是
this
给别
special
人
and
就是
auspicious
就
occasion.
是
So
就
they
就
spread
出现
colorful
种种
clouds
的一
and
些这个
dazzling
瑞
rainbows,
象，然后呢，就是他
which
就
are
抛
very
洒这个彩云
auspicious.
充满这个虚空啊，彩云就是这个彩虹缭绕，就是遍满长康啊，
The
就是苍
dazzling
穹。他
rainbows
这个
and
是
colorful clouds fills
怎
the
么讲？就
entire
是本来
space.
是那个夏威夷呢，就是他们说是这是
Hawaii,
彩虹的
I
城市，就是
Hawaii
一
is
般经常
renowned
有
as
有彩
the
虹呢，并不是很那
city
个
of
很奇妙的。但是
rainbows.
我们
The
来的
rainbows
时
are
候的话
quite
呢，这里
rare,
面没有
really,
写，就是当时
because
我们就是刚到的时候的话，那就是他寺院的附
there
近呢，就
was
是有
none
有特别好的这种彩虹，就他们说是第二件造圣也有，但是第二件造圣的这个是我是没有看到啊。就凡是这个彩虹呢，也许可能他们是彩虹城市嘛，就是经常就是也就是会有，就是这也不是什么。但是法王说是这第一个是这个迹象。第二句的话呢，就是这个迹象的这个地方转发的，每个人呢都会享受这个施善，就过得快乐。
The second sentence means that after turning the wheel of Dharma at this auspicious location, you will delightedly carry out the 10 virtuous deeds.
多，就这个然后第三句呢，就是夏威夷这个地方的话，像极乐世界一样圆满了激进这个贪嗔，它是激进的方面。然后还有呢，就是它有这个燃烧的火山，也圆满了愤怒的贪嗔。
And it says that the third one is Hawaii completes the signs of peaceful and wrathful, the peaceful mandala, because it is a place like the blissful pure land of Havati. It is also endowed with the signs of wrathful mandala because it features fiery volcanoes. The last sentence points out that this location is quite fortunate. May this auspiciousness last, spread, and ever increase. May everything be complete, always fortunate and sublime. There are lots of words of auspiciousness. He continued to say that I did not prepare this verse in advance. It just came to me on the spur of the moment. I was instantly inspired after hearing your beautiful and auspicious chanting, and I spontaneously sang this song of good fortune for you. It was really fortunate that I recorded this, and there was a recording. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to record this right away at that moment, since it passed by so quick, and it was just the spur of the moment. Everyone was thrilled upon hearing it.
西方人是比较理性的，就不容易就是大动的，就是不是很那种的。
There was some internet interruption there, and then let's begin. Then on the meadow in front of the temple, a few peacocks were leisurely roaming about, and then they would sing loudly and crisply. It sounds like their piercing calls were also remarking such an auspicious moment. I felt that they have many peacocks there, and a few years ago, some of our fellow Sangha members went there, and when I asked them whether they saw some peacocks, they said yes, there were still many peacocks over there. Following that, Phuntsuk Rinpoche then officially bestowed the Bodhisattva vow. He then made some homage verses and paid prostrations. He would usually use many different homage verses. I will not recite them, but usually it was then the homage, and then at the end it was the rededication of merit. Usually at each of the beginning of each classes, Phuntsuk Rinpoche would make homage to the root gurus and the Shakyamuni Buddha, and then Pamasambhava, and then Longchenpa, Mipa Rinpoche, the three roots, Manjushri. And then there is an invitation verse. An invitation verse to invite all beings to listen to the Dharma. Though Phuntsuk Rinpoche would recite those at the beginning of each of the Dharma teachings, but it only included in this one, not for the rest of the class, for the rest of the lessons given by Phuntsuk Rinpoche. And then he continued to talk about the 5 perfections: the perfect time, perfect place, perfect teaching, and the perfect teacher, and the perfect retinue. The 5 perfections. You probably also feel that at times of doing transcripts of the Dharma teachings of people would be very difficult. But I personally really felt that Phuntsuk Rinpoche's Dharma teachings were rather very complete itself. In the past, I never felt that his teachings were that complete, but when I started to work on it, I deeply was surprised that how very complete Ponzo Rinpoche's speech was. Just simply by transcribing them, I didn't need to make much changes. The perfect time, Ponzo Rinpoche talked about the particular time, the Sagadawa month, was the Buddha's birth, was the month which the Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and nirvana took place. So this is the month when the Buddha's enlightened activities began and ended. So it is the most auspicious period of the year. On top of that, when Ponzo Rinpoche Ponzo Rinpoche said that right before I came to Hawaii, we just held a Grand Dharma Assembly of Sukhavati, in which 300,000 Tibetans and more than 10,000 monastics gathered and made aspiration to be reborn in Sukhavati. This auspicious gathering marked a favorable beginning because everyone present planted the seed to be reborn in the Western Pure Land of Sukhavati. It is to make an auspicious connection to Sukhavati. When Ponzo Rinpoche went to the West, I believe that was his way of making connections to sentient beings so that the beings would make auspicious connection to be reborn in Sukhavati. And then the perfect place, just after the grand gathering, I came to United States. United States is one of the most powerful countries in the world to teach you the Dharma. This interdependent arising is very auspicious, so I'm deeply joyful. And then the third perfection is the perfect teaching. In terms of the Dharma, I am especially pleased, although there are many good and wonderful religions in the world that brings people peace and happiness. Being Buddhists, we're very fortunate to be able to encounter the Dharma and be aware of its value in that the Dharma can bring us permanent peace and happiness. Such awareness is a sign of understanding the significance of the excellent kalpa. Most Buddhists are well aware of this important fact, but this understanding does not come from the blind faith. We should not simply say that Buddhism is very beneficial because I'm Buddhist. Rather, it is to be aware of the value of Dharma and the benefits that Dharma brings. Although the Hinayana path that leads to self-liberation is also worthwhile, its motivation is only for the self-liberation. Comparatively, the Mahayana pursuit is much grander because it is motivated by the mind to benefit all sentient beings instead of just focusing on personal liberation. To attain liberation and to also benefit sentient beings, also on top of that, we're fortunate to follow the Mahayana path, especially even more fortunate for us to meet the Vajrayana, or the sacred Mantrayana, which is the pinnacle of Mahayana that has the potential to enable us to recognize the nature of mind to quickly achieve full enlightenment in a single lifetime. We're so very lucky to have all these coincidences. The perfect teacher. Personally, I encountered Buddhism at birth and began to give Dharma teachings at the age of 14 and have been carrying on this undertaking ever since. Now, the year Ponzo Rinpoche went to the United States to give Dharma teachings was when he was 60 years old, and he would have been given Dharma teachings for 46 years, and Ponzo Rinpoche passed away at the age of 71, and he had been teaching for 57 years. Many of the Dharma teachers may say that, well, I am only a mundane being, and I cannot compare to Ponzo Rinpoche. Maybe some of you would think in such a way. Anyhow, Ponzo Rinpoche then continued to say that I used to be quite adept at teaching. However, now as I'm getting older, my health has declined and my eyes no longer see texts clearly. Therefore, I feel that the quality of my teaching decreases in such a situation. But Ponzo Rinpoche really was just being very humble. He continued to say that I had a very little chance to learn about politics, technologies, and traditions of the different Western countries. I do not even know the eating habits of yours. Therefore, I am a little embarrassed that the way I explain Dharma may fail your expectations and cannot satisfy your interest. Ponzo Rinpoche is being very humble, saying that I don't know too much about this. And then he continued to say that if I make any mistakes, you can correct me. And I can only explain this to be the result of karma from our previous lives. The perfect retinue is that today most of you are Buddhists from different countries and nationalities, and you all have a certain level of faith and intelligence. These are the 5 kinds of perfection. Maybe we should stop here. What time is it? Now, in terms of the common practices or common preliminaries, before the actual practice, I would like to get into the topic of the difficulty of obtaining a human body. Now that we have already gained the precious human body that has the freedom and potentials to practice the Dharma, it is very rare. Why is that? Because firstly, it is rare in terms of its cost. The human body is the result of accumulating merit, abstaining from non-virtue, and practicing virtue throughout numerous lifetimes. It is not obtained throughout other means. Secondly, this can be illustrated by an analogy. If we were to throw beans onto a wall, the chances of a single bean sticking on the wall is very slim. However, the chance of getting a human body is even less than that. It is even more rare than that. Thirdly, a human body is very rare in terms of its quantity. The Buddha taught in the sutra that the number of people who practice non-virtuous activities is equivalent to the number of dust particles on the entire earth, while the number of people who have attained the perfect human body and practice virtuous deeds is equivalent to the number of dust particles on a thumbnail, on the nail of the thumb. Having obtained such a rare human body is of great significance. If you want to gain long life, health, wealth, and fame in this life, it is possible for you to have all of these by relying on this human body. Moreover, if you want to engage in Dharma, practicing for welfare of future lifetimes, and eventually attain the inconceivable Buddhahood that is free from any suffering, both physically and mentally, it is also possible for you to accomplish this goal by utilizing this particular body. However, one is endowed with such a precious body, if one does not seize the opportunity by all means to practice the Dharma for the benefit of self and others, one may quickly lose it because death may befall at any time. This is the impermanence of life. At the moment of death, one will certainly drift to other realms under the force of karma. This is the infallible karmic law. At this time, there would be no freedom to practice virtuous deeds and no opportunity to seek happiness. This is samsara, the repetitive cycle of frustration and suffering. Therefore, when we are still free and at ease, right now, right at this moment, we should practice pure and wholesome deeds. As for how to perform virtuous deeds, our founding teacher, that is Buddha Shakyamuni, out of his great loving kindness and compassion, taught many methods and compared them respectively to ordinary metal, gold, diamonds, and wish-fulfilling jewels. Among these practices, the most supreme are those that are like wish-fulfilling jewels. So, out of many methods that the Buddha had taught, which one would you prefer? Ponzo Rinpoche then asked the average, the medium, or the better, or the best? The audience then all answered the best, then everyone laughed. Since you want to practice the best Dharma, let me tell you, among the 84,000 teachings of the Dharma, of the Buddha's Dharma, there is nothing better than the Bodhicitta and the great perfection. Bodhicitta is the teaching that all Mahayana practitioners can practice. The great perfection, on the other hand, is the Vajrayana teaching of sacred mantra, which does not belong to the Mahayana teachings, but it can be practiced only by those of particular sharp faculties and is not applicable to all Mahayana practitioners. Do you want to practice both of them or just one? At that time, the audience, most of them would raise their hands and say both, and everyone laughed over there. Ponso Rinpoche said, very good, it is excellent that if you want to practice both of them. In fact, most of the great masters in the land of Tibet practice these two together. This is really crucial to remember. I really hope that a majority of you would place your attention to these two, Bodhicitta and Mahayana. These two are really important to practice. Ponso Rinpoche used such skillful means, just like showing a movie, and displayed these two great methods to the audience. Indeed, the great masters of Tibet, all of the great masters that we had relied on, the two most important teachings they adopt is firstly Bodhicitta, and the second one is great perfection, Mahayana. If you were to think that you're the disciple of Ponso Rinpoche, are the two most important Dharma practices that in your heart, Bodhicitta and great perfection or not? And Ponso Rinpoche said, it is very excellent that you have such aspiration. Today I'm here to first introduce Bodhicitta and then give you the Bodhisattva vow. And then Ponso Rinpoche in the next part would talk about the qualities of Bodhicitta, and then would bestow the Bodhisattva vow. Let us stop here today.